at Beam, and I'm interviewing Jasmine Teer, who works at Small Girls PR.
Hi, how's it
Hi,
going?
Jasmine. Good. How are you?
It's great. I'm so glad to be here.
That's awesome. So to start off, would you be able to tell me a little bit about what you do at Small Girls PR and kind of what a day in the office looks like for you?
Absolutely. I run a team of publicists at a PR agency out of New York, and I run a team of publicists that focus on innovation. So that means working with a lot of brands who are either doing really innovative things when it comes to building new products and services, or who are doing really innovative things in terms of how they run their company and what their approach to their industry is. So we work with them a lot of times with their communications teams, or sometimes with their product teams, and really try to figure out what's the best way to tell their brand story in different markets. It's really fun, and it means that no 2 days are quite the same. And I know a lot of people say that, but I spend about half of my day working with clients and really thinking through what some upcoming ownable moments are, that we call them. And the other part of my time I spend thinking about new business strategy, media relations, what's really happening in the media industry, where are innovation stories really showing up, and who are the brands that are driving them. And for clients that I work with, how do we start to take a hold of some of those conversations and really build mind share there? That's a lot of kind of what I do day to day. And that means going to a lot of meetings, having a lot of brainstorms, really thinking about creative media strategies, working with everyone from like Fortune 500s all the way down to startups. I think, probably the biggest companies I've worked with are GE and Verizon and L'Oreal, the PGA Tour, and some really cool startups I've worked with are Ellevest. Absolute Art is a startup within a corporation, so they're really cool. And even some nonprofits like the Malala Fund, or working with individuals like Ariana Huffington. So the gamut is really wide in terms of the types of companies who are really driving innovation in various categories and fields. And that means no 2 days for me really look the same.
That sounds amazing. That really seems like you kind of epitomize meaningful work for yourself with having diversity throughout all of your work days and things like that.
It drives me for sure.
Mhm. My second question is, how did you first become interested in PR? You were a Stanford alum, so I'm assuming you took some classes that were related to that at Stanford. And so was there a particular class or experience at Stanford that really got you into this field?
Yes and no. So I was an econ major. I have always loved storytelling, but I didn't grow up saying I want to be a publicist for sure. I think what I did really enjoy is understanding how companies would come to life in the public eye. And as an econ major, I did a lot of work thinking about how companies and organizations grow and how they scale. And really started to think about data and how it could be such an amazing tool in terms of telling a story. And so being an econ major kind of helps to fuel the way that I think about storytelling and crafting now. But can I point to a particular class individually? I don't know if I can. I think overall there were a lot of great takeaways from so many classes that I went to. I think the first was, you're either, as an organization, as a person, I think maybe you can even get a little philosophical with this, but you're either kind of growing, changing, bringing on new things, or you're kind of stagnant and dying. And I remember talking about that concept in econ class, and I think about it till this day, especially as it applies to large companies that have been around for over 100 years to startup companies and companies who are going to launch in the next few months. They're always thinking about, how do we grow? How do we change? How do we adapt to environments? How do we adapt to the market? How do we adapt to new audiences? And I think that's kind of a really core philosophical concept that really stuck with me coming out of that major.
That's really great. That's so good to hear. So I guess another question that I have, sort of going off of experiences that you had that relate to your interest in PR. So anything outside of Stanford, anything that you experienced like within an internship, or once you like any connections that you had with anyone, or even like as a teenager or a kid growing up that sort of got you interested in this field?
Yeah, so my love for storytelling kind of started before Stanford, and then I think there was a lot of experiences I had once I got to college that helped to resonate a few of those. But I actually got an amazing, very lucky opportunity to do broadcast journalism before I went off to college. It was a part of a senior project that I did in high school, and lucky enough, I kind of figured out what I was doing in that role early on, and the news station basically asked me to stay on the summer before I left for school and become a reporter. So every day I got to be on the 5 o'clock news. I got to meet local organizations, hang out with the mayor a couple of times, go on, drug bust, anything that was really kind of top of the news for the day in my hometown. And it really showed me a great opportunity to not only tell the stories of a city, tell the stories of the businesses in that city, but really individualize people and start bringing out what the unique characteristics of their narratives and their stories were. So I think that was a really unique opportunity. But then when I got to Stanford, I didn't decide to study journalism. I always knew I wanted to go into more of a business or a corporate field and a role. And so some of the things that I did outside of classes were tutoring people for oral communications and public speaking, and really trying to hone my own personal skills by helping others with theirs. Other things that I did were work at Stanford Student Enterprises. I ran a few different businesses there, and it was a great early business education in terms of learning everything from P&L to how to do marketing, or how to really just run a strategy for a company and build on top of ideas that might be very early stage or in their infancy. So all of those things were kind of great experiences that now still give me a lot of foundation to what I do in terms of helping companies think about their early stages, or helping companies think about how they continue to market themselves outward.
Very nice. My last question that I have today is, what advice would you give to a student interested in pursuing PR or a similar related career like marketing or sales?
Yeah, I think it's really interesting. I mean, I'm a diehard Stanford fan. I love it. I think one of the interesting things is that as a university, we are probably now just starting to put more emphasis on more like pre-professional experiences. And a lot of that really applies to the creative fields. When I was in school, I didn't know what a publicist did. I didn't know how that was different from someone who did traditional marketing or digital marketing, or worked at an ad agency and really did creative. I think anyone who's interested in any of those fields, the first step would really just be doing some research and learning what are those differences. Do you want to be storyboarding creative concepts and coming up with the Super Bowl ads? Maybe you work at an ad agency. Do you want to be working with the CEOs and CTOs and CMOs of corporations and companies, helping to define who they're going to be in a marketplace and how the public sees them? Then you become a publicist. Or do you want to think about the content that lives in between and gets spread across the internet and shows up on your, Snapchat? If so, then maybe you think about digital marketing. So I think there's so many kind of related fields in this creative ad PR space. And I think the first step is really just to do a little digging, find agencies, find work that you find inspiring or really interesting or just really thoughtful, and then do a little digging to see who does it. I think the second thing is not only find companies that you love, but find people whose jobs you want to emulate and start to understand what path they took to get there, or what kinds of experiences they built on to really establish their careers. And probably last, but definitely not least, reach out to alumni who are doing that exact thing. When I graduated from Stanford, I actually went into consulting first before I transitioned into PR. It was such a great opportunity, but I got that opportunity just by exploring. I was at Stanford Concert Network for 3 of the 4 years when I was in school. Really thought I wanted to go into entertainment and business. And so really just looked through the alumni Rolodex and said, who has a job that sounds really cool to me? I wonder if they'll give me 5 minutes, or I wonder if they'll grab a coffee. And it happened to be someone who worked in media and entertainment for a management consulting firm. And after talking for 20 minutes, I was well on my way to having my first job. And that was before sending a resume. So you never know what kind of just informational conversation can turn into an opportunity. I think what people who are hiring want to see is that you have an intellectual curiosity about the industry, that you are doing research, that you are digging, that you are trying to put a little self-assessment around like what you'd be really good at and why. And I think so much can come from there, not just from the learning side, but then also turning into action to even getting a job. So I think that's my biggest piece of advice for people kind of going this direction and into these industries.
Great. Thank you so much, Jasmine. You have some really amazing insights. So it was wonderful talking to you.
Yeah, anytime. Glad to do it.
Thanks so much.
Bye.
Bye.